3rd, 2024. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Here.
Ellenboss.
Present.
Ingalls.
Here.
King.
Here.
Mayor Filkins.
Here. And at this time, if we could,
I will make a motion to approve the
that.
agenda as amended to add a closed session to discuss a written confidential legal opinion with the city attorney.
Second it.
Councilmember Ellenboss.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
yes, motion carries. We'll go ahead and open the floor for our first public comment. We do ask if you come up, if you would please state your name and then write your name and address for the clerk. That's very much appreciated, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
I'm Rob Munger. Thank you for letting me stand up here tonight and speak. I have two awards, and they are the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference Awards for appreciation. It was an exciting celebration of years of success. The awards are for Marcus Pecha and John Wallace. They have worked diligently to lead the community away from blight to a city of prosperity. The hard work is paying off by making Cadillac a place to stay and visit. Both Marcus and John were instrumental in bringing the conference to the city of Cadillac that was being admired by other communities during the Connecting Entrepreneurial Conference. Marcus and John worked with other community leaders and staff in facilitating this wonderful event, showing their selfless acts of working as a team leader and member. And I want to thank you and applaud you for your efforts. The other thing I wanted to do too is I looked up a while back what you and Marcus and John have been doing for the grants. I was curious financially what the impact that they've done for the city between 2016 and 2022 through Marcus's leadership, John's diligent writing of grants, and then I know Owen and the other people have done a lot to support. They have raised $6,392,000 and $709. So thank you for the efforts, and I really applaud. And if it's okay, I can present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie going next? Sure. Alrighty. So you've got a purple tire. It reminds me.
I do. I have a purple tire.
Vegas.
It's not Vegas. It's really quick. I have special treats for all of you.
If you wouldn't mind, just tell us who
Okay.
you are.
Oh, sorry.
That'd be great.
I have ADHD. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You know,
And Bill distracted me.
I think there's actually an item on our agenda
but
this evening.
I want to give this to you quickly and just not distract anymore. Okay. So, because I have ADHD. And I'm too excited. I'm going to burn Billy down if you make me wait much longer.
Thank you.
What's your name?
I'm Jamie Stickles.
Oh, we talked on the phone.
We talked on the phone.
Yeah.
Did I give you my present?
No. Thank you.
Here you go. Here I am with my tire, as promised. I built this. I made this. I had this donated to me. All of this came free, and then I assembled it. And then this is what it's going to look like. And it has a hole in the bottom for water drainage. Then there's that. And then I had talked to Mallory's. Oh, sorry. I'm not used to a microphone. I talked to Mallory, and she said that it can only be up for 30 days. And then, so she said, if you have to pick a day, what would it be? And I said, April 15th, because I was driving and caught me off guard. And so then I talked to the relay people and told them what was up. And she said, do you think they will change it to April 8th? So then I talked to Sandy, and she said, ask them. So here I'm at the public comments to kind of amend that thing on the agenda. Because then that will be the actual 30 days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job, Jamie. And thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the LDFA. I'd like the council and the city and the LDFA to show more transparency. Since October of 2020, the EPA has been investigating PFAS questions in the industrial park groundwater in Cadillac. A few meetings ago, the city manager announced that either the LDFA or the city blocked or prevented or denied testing of the LDFA wells for PFAS. That perked my interest. I checked with the Eagle and the EPA. It turns out the Department of Eagle conducted tests actually in 21 and 22. And it was back in October of 2020 when the LDFA made a motion to unanimously not allow them, at least until 2026, 6 years later, to get in and do PFAS testing. So the test results did come back positive. It's not been shared to the public, which I think is a mistake. They are just below what the limits were, at least one chemical. There's 7 chemicals. They add up. I think that was unforgivable. The city should be transparent. The LDFA should be. There's good people on that board. The LDFA's done a good thing. It's been going for 27 years, but never once has it been tested for PFAS. And in 2014 and 13, since then, it's been a big issue, and there was a plating company there. We have an extension of a well for Herring Township going out at $2.5 million almost, also a new well system going in because of PFAS. The LDFA and the city sat on this for 3 years. And I don't know if council knows. I'd like to know if council was told this. There was supposed to be a meeting at one point to get the council's permission. That is something I asked for, or I'm asking for tonight later, but I don't think it ever came to council. That's something you folks should have known about. So the city sat on this. The LDFA, I think, is a nice group of people. There's an argument whether they're a contractor or an owner-operator. I'm worried that they're not indemnified against third-party claims. I'd like the city to clear that up, clear up the structure to get an LDFA attorney that is independent and experienced in Superfund issues, get some environmental consultant bidding going on as well. I think you've had one company for 30 years. That would be due for a bidding process. And, I can't tell if this is a city group or not, or a private group. Try to do a good thing here. But the city attorney shows up. City manager runs the program. So 7 chemicals were found. I'm worried about the Clam River. It sounds like a minimalist approach is going on for testing, and that seems ridiculous. We need to have robust testing. You need to clean this up, not walk away from it. I don't know if we would have ever heard about this had not the guidelines change, and they're changing in July, where
Okay, Mr. Burnett.
the city's out of compliance, and I think it might be a good idea to shut down the LDFA until you figure this out. Thank you.
Rick Torres, 113 at Eagle Place. Wise use. I spent my entire career preaching conservation. This issue that he brings up is of vital importance to all of us. I mean, there is one way to purify water. We know what that is. That'll truly purify it. 99.9% reverse osmosis. But obviously, we cannot put a giant RO system for our water supply. So, yeah, transparency for this LDFA is vital. Getting it looked at again, vital. The people in our community are drinking this water. That's life. Water is life. The creatures in the world depend upon it. We depend upon it. Without it, we cannot survive. Flint was a horrible story. Still continues. It's not quite done down there yet. They think they got a resolution for it. But God forbid anything like that were to happen in our communities. It would be years down the road before we would see people clearing out. When I say that, I mean those people that suffer from the effects of what that could do to them. Learning deficiencies, babies born wrong, don't look right. I forget what the term is, but it's a very serious issue, and you need to take it to heart because it matters to all of us. Thank you.
Seeing no one else, we'll close public comment, excuse me, and move to the approval of the consent agenda. And tonight we do have the minutes from the special meeting that was held on May 30th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Alabas?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries. And this evening, we do have a FOIA appeal, and so I'm going to turn that over to Marcus and Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council from time to time. We do get appeal after a Freedom of Information Ask request gets denied or denied in part. It has been customary for the City Council to allow basically the person that has put the appeal forward, in this case Mr. Barnett, to have the floor for a few minutes to share with us their thoughts. And then at the end of that, it goes back to city staff, city attorney, to provide any clarifying information, additional information, or whatnot, followed by discussion and consideration then of city council in terms of whether or not to grant or deny the appeal itself. So with that, Mayor, if
Okay.
you can offer Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
So I would object to the process of not having an opportunity to rebut or respond. I appreciate maybe I won't need to, but I think due process would require something be set up and that it'd be more fair. Anyway, there were PFAS test results, contrary to what was announced, that it was blocked, and that's the assumption I got from a statement from staff. I appreciate him letting that cat out of the bag because that allowed me to FOIA Eagle and EPA and also work with them about this because I am concerned about the Clam River. So there was test results from Eagle in 2021 and 2022. I understand they both came back positive for PFAS, adding the numbers together, pretty high, moderate if they're taken separately. There is a new rule coming up in July that puts it out of compliance. But I would like to see the October 2022 results. I got the 21 in the letter sent to me. It says that both were granted to me. I can't find it in the 60 pages. I appreciate the free response for the community and also Mr. Keyway's work. He missed 4 meetings when he went through it the first time, found another folder, worked with me. It's very easy to work with, so I appreciate his work. But I don't have the October 22nd, 2022 rather, test results. And I'm wondering why the city wouldn't have those or turn those over, knowing that you did have the 21, which is 3.5 years ago or so, 3 years at least, in your possession, at least when I FOIA'd them. So that's my first order, and the most significant part of my appeal is can I have the test results that were done not once but twice, and the second time by Eagle. I did file a written. I'll just sort of supplement that if I could. There is a October 2020 LDFA meeting. This is the first time I can see it mentioned anywhere. It's a 22-minute meeting. And the city had nothing to provide me prior to that, showing the run-up to, hey, we're going to have a quick meeting, we're going to vote on PFAS and block testing, and try to hold it off for another 6 years, and sort of just let it sit there, hidden, my words. But it was a 22-minute meeting. Tetra Tech showed up, city manager made a motion, and there's no lead up at all by emails, reports, communications, anything that the city would have telling them that the EPA is coming, and they were coming at that point. So I'd like to see whatever is available from the city manager, utilities director, Tetra Tech, in between city council members, LDFA members, EPA, Eagle, reports, communications related to when the city found out about this, because I'm guessing it happened prior to October of 2020. And I don't know why it would be sat on and not dealt with when it's the tests that were done weren't official tests, not quality assurance tests, and those weren't ever done. This thing just got dropped, and I put fault on the city, the state, and the federal government for doing those inappropriate steps. There, in October, there was an email that went to the EPA. Mr. Dietland said he was going to address the PFAS sampling schedule with the Cadillac City Council /management for approval. So I never saw anything in writing where it went to the management or it went to the council. It's not showing up in the 50 to 60 pages I received. I'm concerned that it never went to the council, and the management obviously sits on the LDFA and would have been knowledgeable about that. Just, I'd like to see if there's anything that existed that went to council, and why the 18 wells weren't allowed to be used for testing. A lot of this is under the attorney-client communication. I realize there's third-party liability and things like this, so I would ask you to be careful about that. I want you all to read what the communications were, so nothing's blacked out. You guys get to see it. I trust you. But I would ask that if there's things in there that should be turned over that does no harm to the city, that I'd be provided those. I asked for anything that said PFAS in it within the last several years, and apparently that was too broad. So with that said, I just would ask for, again, more transparency, and if anything else was found after the first bit of two segments were given to me, I'd appreciate it if you could share those. I'm gravely concerned about the status of the Clam River, rather, and what could be going on even today, because we've never tested the outflow going into the river, ever, in 27 years. And I think it's a mistake when you've had a plating company there that was a real slob. So with that said, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will try to be as organized and concise as I can in giving some updates. I apologize if it sounds a little confusing. It's a complex issue. In short, when the Local Development Finance Authority, or LDFA, was created, it was created to deal with VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and TCE, Jeff, how do you say it? Trichloroethylene?
Correct.
Trichloroethylene. Not at all a part of PFAS. There's an agreement in place with the federal government that dictates exactly what is to be tested and how it's to be cleaned up. I'm, again, being very brief in this sort of very short summary of what the LDFA does. The LDFA and the very unique partnership that it created with Cadillac industry was for that sole purpose. And the industry pays for that cleanup through a special assessment that is in place. Currently, the assessment area is there. The assessment itself is not on, and that's because there's currently funds to pay for the treatment and the processing. As council knows, we will eventually be looking at reactivating that assessment, but that's not a part of today's discussion. Skipping ahead many, many, many years to where we are now in the world of PFAS, the EPA, Eagle, had asked about having the LDFA take it on. The LDFA, and what it was established to do, has nothing to do with anything outside of the very limited framework that it was established for. However, the state of Michigan was given permission to test for PFAS in that location. At the time that the FOIA request came in from Mr. Barnett, we only had documentation regarding the 2021 EPA results. Late last month, after all of this was already requested through FOIA, we received the 2022 documentation, and I do have a copy for Mr. Barnett this evening, and we'll share a copy with all of City Council probably before I go home tonight. I'll be able to email it to you. The concerns, characteristics about people drinking this water is not in the municipal water supply system. It's not potable water. Any future development that may or may not happen on any of these sites would be connected to the municipal water system that is treated and that is tested regularly for PFAS, in which PFAS does not, it's non-detect, that's the proper term. Additionally, we do test the outflow of what goes into the Clam River from the wastewater treatment plant for PFAS as well, and we're within limitations.
Right.
So the city is doing everything that it can in terms of making sure that what we are providing as a product to people that get water from us, whether you live here or work here or recreate here, is safe and well within limitations. And additionally, all of the sewage that we treat, we're also ensuring that it's treated in a manner in which it is safe to put back into the environment. Because we agree with all the sentiments being shared that, you know, you have one earth, right? One environment, and we don't want to do anything that's going to make it worse. Part of some of, I think, a little of the confusion out there is something called a QAP, which is a United States EPA Quality Assurance Project Plan. When the state of Michigan did their testing, they didn't do it under a U.S. EPA Quality Assurance Project Plan, or QAP. And because they didn't do it under that format, the EPA is not accepting it as being something that was done. Regardless of what the results of that plan is, in terms of the testing results, the fact is that it was not done under their process. The LDFA, just 2 weeks ago, had a meeting and agreed that they will facilitate a QAP for the closing down of the Northern Air plating site, which again is only focused on the TCE and the VOC cleanup, while also authorizing a QAP testing for PFAS. Even if it comes back is that there's PFAS in the ground, which we know that there is at least a little bit in the ground, it doesn't necessarily restrict anything in terms of future development or future activity, because that water is not water that is a part of any municipal, it's not part of our infrastructure. So it's water that's a part of the ground cleanup that's happening right now, and it's not part of the system in which people would be able to build and put a well. If somebody were to put a house there or a business there at some point in the future, they would have to be a part of the city's municipal infrastructure. And so, the question of is there a remedy, is there not a remedy, the likely outcome would be that the US EPA acknowledges that a test was done under their process, under their format, and then would further acknowledge that any water out there would have to be restricted to being used as a part of the municipal system. So I don't know if that helps clarify or if that creates any more confusion. I'm going to ask Mike to now talk about just the appeal process and where we're at with that. Did you have a question?
Question about the,
Yeah.
before just the appeal process?
Sure.
It's not about the appeal, it's about the whole testing and the water
Yeah,
test.
sure.
I know that when the LDFA was set up, that it wasn't designed to test, it was designed to mitigate, in order for the plume that was contaminated to stop spreading.
Yeah, to pull it up and clean it.
Pull it up and
Yep.
clean it and
Put
then
it back down.
put it back down.
Mhm.
So my question is, if, I know that the process does not eliminate PFAS in it, Jeff, maybe you can help me with this. But, so by testing the PFAS, what would be, if there is some, and I know that the numbers are gonna be changing,
Mhm.
as we learn more, we do more. But is there a way to mitigate for it?
You can use chrome. When you do a chrome cleanup, which is a plating company, you usually use activated carbon to clean up the chrome. And that is what the LDFA is using. So if it is pulling in the well, if it is pulling in PFAS, it would be going through the activated carbon, which would then also take out the PFAS. It should take off the PFAS also. If it's not spent all the carbon, obviously. So there is a way to do it. Luckily for us, the well that we had requested the chromium shutdown on that started all this is the well that goes to the activated carbon. So if there's any PFAS, it would be going to the activated carbon, and it should be getting treatment that way.
Okay, so even if we haven't been testing for it in the past 20 years, because people did not know that this was harmful until recently, we were probably mitigating it all along without
Yes.
even knowing it.
Until 5 years ago or so, PFAS really wasn't mentioned in any environmental area. So yes, we would have been treating it to some degree.
Right.
I don't know how much, but we would have been treating it to some degree by going through the activated carbon.
And that might explain the negligible test results. Or not, I don't know, my brain is just trying to figure this out. Okay, so I'm clear.
I have one question, Jeff. You said we're within the limits
But
of the plant, the sewage plant, the discharge water. We're
right,
within.
right. We tested.
What is the limit? What's the upper limit, and where are we at, number wise? Do you know?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
There you go. That's what we're good for.
I think it's 11. One of them is 11, and we're at like 8 or
Okay.
7.
A little higher up than we'd like, but
Yeah, but we're and there's like 50 different PFASs.
okay.
They have all different numbers for it, but the ones we're concerned about,
Okay.
we're well within, and we do, that is part of the NPDES permit for the wastewater treatment plant. We also have an NPDES permit for the LDFA plant. Testing for PFAS, this is such a new contaminant that the state didn't put that in for a testing parameter at the LDFA when they reissued the NPDES permit like 2 years ago. So this is something even the state's trying to catch up on, the testing and stuff of contaminants.
Thank you.
Is the concern that they will require, if they, or the resistance to the testing, that they're going to require us to continue to operate the wells and the cleaning process to do that until the PFAS is gone? Is that a concern that the city has?
Well,
Yeah.
it could be, but the well that we're asking to have the chromium shut down is in the intermediate aquifer, which is slated to shut down in 2046. All the intermediate ones are 2046. So even though they would, the EPA would close out the chromium cleanup, that well would still be running. That water would still be going through the activated carbon. That water would, theoretically still be treating PFAS until 2046, if it's drawing it in that well. So,
Well, and part of that answer, I believe, also is just to iterate that the US EPA informed us that they will not allow for the closure of the northern air plating testing site. Jeff, I'm saying that correct, right?
yeah,
Northern air plating testing site unless we provide them with documentation that went through their process, their qualified assurance plan process, showing that we had tested it for PFAS. They're very interested in wanting to see that we went through that test. They're not indicating that, and here is what we'll have to make you do if it comes back this way, or this way, other than by saying, as long as you can also show that you have a restricted water system, that being the municipal system, it should not hang us up. But I mean, this is, a very new territory for everybody. As it was actually stated during comments and third-party liability, this is the type of material that it doesn't matter whether you were involved in it or not. Anybody that has control over the land could become a liable party under the federal rules for this stuff.
So you said earlier that the US EPA, we are going to use their QAP and go ahead and test for
Yep.
PFAS. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I will say that there was a lot of dialogue at the LDFA meeting about that, of concerns that have been mentioned here tonight, about this is not what the charge of the LDFA was designed to do. Simply put, they were designed to clean up VOCs and TCE. This is outside of that. This is new. However, the federal government is now, to a degree, correlating, if you want to move forward with closing out parts of the LDFA that are rightfully cleaned and ready to be closed out, we still want you to do this other.
So if historically this has not been under the purview of LDFA, is it going to be under the purview of LDFA moving forward?
I'm not sure if we know that definitively, to be honest with you, Mayor.
we don't know that.
We don't. We don't. We're taking it one step at a time. And we're all certainly concerned about the environment. We want to make sure that we do what's right, but we're also concerned about, what this means for future cleanup.
So you have an additional document to provide to Mr. Burnett?
We do. We do have the 2022 document that we received at the end of May.
From October of
From
2022?
October,
Okay.
from the US EPA, that I'd be happy to hand over to Mr. Barnett. And Mike, I'm not sure, I think you probably should give some guidance in terms of the appeal itself at this point.
I'd like to have a rebuttal at the appropriate time to what Mr. Fetch has said.
Not sure if rebuttal's a part of this process.
I heard earlier that it is not.
Right.
I think that's not a fair process, sorry to interrupt. Fair process is to let the moving party have the last word. I should be able to respond to what's being said here. I was given no due process layout as I came in. I just think I deserve another chance to speak and respond to what Mr. Fetch has just told you.
So, as the city council is aware, there was a request for documents. Those requests were granted in part, denied in part. The reason, I'll focus just real quick on the reasons for denial is that they were vague and overbroad, asking for all documents, all of this, all of that, which there's no stated time frame in there, so arguably could include anything from the beginning of time related to PFAS or MTBE. So that creates a problem for the city. Now, the city did grant in part those documents that could be reasonably identified by the city as responsive to that request, notwithstanding the overbreadth and vagueness of that. And so it's my understanding the city turned over all of the documents it could locate in its possession that it could reasonably identify as responsive to the request, save for this one document which was received afterwards. The other requests had to do with attorney-client privilege communications which are exempt under the law, and so that request was denied. So, to my knowledge, the city has produced everything in its possession except for attorney-client privilege communications, which are exempt.
Was the request for the information to the run-up to the October 2020 LDFA meeting, was that declined because the time frame was too vague? Or was that just no material was turned up?
Yeah, we didn't have that. If you're talking about the most recent, that document was just received a few days ago, end of May.
No, I'm talking about there's minutes to an October 2020 LDFA meeting where they discuss the test, the first one. I think Mr. Barnett was saying that there wasn't any information in the run-up to that meeting, the setup to that meeting.
It was October 2020.
And I thought as I was reading I thought that was denied because he didn't associate a time frame with that request.
I think it was denied if there was nothing that our IT scouring, when the company goes out and looks for all the keywords to try to find information on our servers. I mean, if there's nothing there, then there's nothing that's going to pop.
So there'd be no information leading up to that meeting. I know that it was in the heat of lockdown. October 2020 was a very precarious time. People weren't even in here, so. And it looks like it was a very short meeting, so there may not have been a lot of, because we get information prior to our meetings.
Did
they?
Sorry.
Sometimes they do, other times they don't. And I all I can say is that when we get a FOIA request, especially one that is rather broad, it's just kicked to IT to work behind the scenes, pull up everything and anything on the servers. So that's what we did here. I couldn't tell you, council member. I'm sorry.
No, Mr. Bennett's talking about reviewing the attorney communications. Is that an option to ever release those? Is that a process that council takes, reviewing?
So the attorney-client privilege is owned by the city itself. The council can waive that privilege. I had this conversation actually earlier today. In 25 years, I have recommended that one time, and that was under really extreme circumstances. So I again, it's not my privilege, it's the city's. Depending on how or what you want to waive with respect to attorney-client privilege, we'd have to have further discussions on what the risks and consequences of that could be. I don't know.
I guess I looked at it differently, Mike, and part of my question is I approach this from this is an appeal of a Freedom of Information Act request. So our duty is to decide whether we responded appropriately to it. And I guess as part of that, part of the notes I wrote down is it's hard for me to judge whether we've given a citizen what we should give them when we haven't seen what they've been given. I didn't have whether the 2021 test results or any of the information that was granted to Mr. Burnett to be able to look at to say, is he overreaching? Is he not overreaching? The whole purpose of the Freedom of Information Act is to have open and transparent. So in saying that, the question that Councilmember Ingalls had, I heard differently in that, and Mike, council would have the ability in closed session to review those materials to be able to determine if we saw anything in there that wasn't perhaps privileged, that was shared with another outside source or was handled in a different way, in making our opinion as to whether the appeal should be granted or not. The other note I took out is I went one by one. I had 6 things that were asked for. Number 5 was granted, which was all minutes of the LDFA meetings, the topics of PFAS and MTBE for the past 10 years. It says your request is granted. I wrote no issue. I would have liked to have seen that to see what that is, so what information was given. And then 2, that sparked my note on number 1, which is everything in the city's possession related to testing or testing results from the LDFA for PFAS or MTBE. That potentially is answered in 6, but I don't know what was answered in 6, so I don't know if we've given it. I think it's important when dealing with this also, and Mike, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Barnett can receive, and my understanding now is he did receive the information that was granted. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
So once that's given, there's no set deadline for him to be able to come back and either say, I want more, or I would like a release of these things for us to consider giving. Is that correct?
You mean if there's another FOIA or an appeal?
That's my question. Can it be handled in both ways? As a
Yes.
separate FOIA?
Yes.
Or if the appeal, Mr. Barnett came and said, for example, tonight, thank you for the 2022 results. I've got these questions from that lead back to my original request. Can I get this information now? And if we said no, or if the city said no, he'd be able to come before us and have that reviewed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we would likely treat that as a separate FOIA,
yeah.
so to close the loop on one before you start that.
Okay. I did, and to Mr. Barnett, and I understand what I viewed this as very narrow. Is the appeal appropriate? Is there stuff we still have to give under FOIA? And we kind of got a presentation of more important information, but outside what the narrow scope of the question was. So I understand why Mr. Barnett's asking for some rebuttal time, because it went beyond what he's asking, and I think we can figure that out in a few minutes if that helps. But I would like to know the question from Mr. Barnett of, with the 2022 results, does that give you everything you were looking for, and therefore is everything else moot?
Right.
And if I heard you correctly, you were given in the 61 or 67 pages the 2021 results. If you can't find them, I think it's easy for us to hand you another copy of those. Is there anything else that you're looking for, or does that satisfy it, which then makes our appeal moot?
So this kind of gets to the point, right, of the denial, which is, first, you'd never know whether or not those documents exist unless somebody asks you for those specific public records. Absent the search that was done, turning over all of those responsive documents, right, you may not know, because it's not like you say, I want the minutes from this date at this meeting. If that was the case, easy to identify, easy to produce. But here, everything in the city's possession related to testing or testing results from the LDFA or PFAS or MTBE. And then the appeal says, concerns of PFAS have been known since 1998 and increased awareness began in 2013. Okay, so we're going back, theoretically anyways, to 1998, doing searches of all of the city's records, and then saying, okay, to the extent we could reasonably identify, here's what we produced. The only way you would know if there was anything more out there was if you had specific knowledge of a document that you thought fell within that request, and therein lies the trouble.
But that's part of my question to you, Mike, is are we safe as a city? Because when I was doing my research this weekend on PFAS and when it became known and what the different issues are going, when I looked at that number 1 of everything, it's overbroad.
Yes.
But is the city safe in saying the city and the LDFA does not, to its knowledge, does not have anything. Going
Well-
back let me just finish this for 1 second. And the idea being, Mr. Barnett would then have the ability to say, I think specifically there is something, and then we're able to research that.
Yeah, so you make a good point, right? Which was, we said it's overbroad. To the extent we could reasonably identify documents that we thought fell in that request and are non-exempt, here they are. But if there is a specific document that you learned about, all you'd have to do is submit another FOIA request saying, I would like this document. I think this document exists. I want this document.
I think that makes sense.
And then it's easier for the city then to identify whether we have that document.
Okay. And I guess, is it appropriate for us at this time to say, Mr. Burnett, with those two results, is there something specifically that you thought might be there that can be searched?
He already told us that there was, that.
Well,
I missed it then, I'm sorry.
I'm not a mind reader. It's not fair that the public be a mind reader.
Oh, and I don't expect you to be a mind
I
reader.
just like plug in PFAS. What do you get? I know you did an ordinance recently. You out of the blue, here comes a new ordinance over in that area. Nobody put a well in. That was another red flag. PFAS didn't come up that time either. You guys have been dealing with this, and would there be something connected with that ordinance that was passed or re-upped? There was something that you voted on within maybe the last year over by where Kaiser's located. Do not put in a well there. You stopped citizens from doing that. There's actually people still drinking the water on 8th Street, by the way. Anyway, I would just, one of the reasons I did this is I don't think you've been told what's been going on, and that you should be able to read all these attorney opinions or letters, what was sent to the EPA, Eagle, the communications. Why has the council been left in the dark? I'd like to ask for a show of hands who's been told about this, but I won't. I'd just like to finish with I still would like to see the communications. Anything that has PFAS on it, I'm not a mind reader. I can't say, oh, here's what I need. You have this. I haven't followed the group here as closely as I probably should have on this issue, or the LDFA, and I'm sorry I didn't do that. But because it was brought up that it was blocked, the testing was blocked, that led to a FOIA communication talks with the EPA and Eagle. And I mean, we're going to be out of compliance in July, and I don't think there's a plan to do anything to stop that date from coming. And with that said, I just had a few remarks to what Marcus said.
I want to address what you said right there, though, because for us in this appeal, I think we need to know if you've been given, and what I'm hearing Mike Comier saying is you've gotten all we've got in relation to PFAS except privileged information.
Correct.
So then the next, and by the way, I don't think any of us have seen what was provided. I haven't seen the
No,
67
but,
pages.
I-
But my point being, part of that analysis, if then you're saying there's other things that you think is non-privileged, that is in some file, then it would be appropriate for us to take a peek at that in considering an appeal. And obviously, Mr. Barnett, if it was privileged information, that would be our response back. But I do think we would have to see that to be able to
Right.
properly judge
And
the
I would
appeal.
just like to interject that, I guess I'd like to talk about, maybe not the second, but talk about the process, the appeal process, and, listening to what Mr. Barnett said about not having the opportunity to speak again. So that's something that I would like to talk about after. But I also realize that we always have, as a council, when something like this is coming to us, we have the opportunity to say to Sandy or to say to Todd Kiway, can I see what was sent to Mr. Barnett?
We did.
Okay.
We actually sent it twice.
Twice, okay.
But all that you have is the redacted versions of what we sent to Mr. Barnett. We sent it
Yes.
before, and I forgot the date, I apologize, whatever the original
I'd have to look it up.
hearing date for this appeal would have been.
May 20, whatever.
Yeah, so it would have gone out a day or two, or the Thursday
Right.
or Friday before then, and then I just resent it this past Friday,
In preparation
anticipation
for this,
of
yeah.
tonight's meeting. But it's again, just to be very clear with everybody, it's not the unredacted versions, it's the
Redacted
redacted versions
version.
that,
So-
that redact the attorney-client privilege.
Okay.
So,
All right, so then where we are, yeah, so then where we are is that there is some specific information that Mr. Barnett is aware of. So guidance from legal would be to go ahead and move forward with closing out this appeal, and then he can come back and, no, you're not a mind reader. No, you're not a mind reader, none of us are. But if there's specific information you think is out there, then please
and we're
come
happy
back with
to
another.
look again, if there's
Yeah.
something more that we can find, be happy to provide it, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to not have to come back. I don't care if you guys adjourn this and everybody read what wasn't given to me. So you've seen it. You can weigh in on that. And if I don't have to be here when you make a ruling, I would like to address, if that's the word, council from the things that were said that I disagreed with your city manager's presentation. In fairness, as it applies to how you're looking at this appeal, I'd like you to hear my side. And I think I deserve a rebuttal, being the appellate and having no process laid out to come in here and to go on the fly like this. I think in fairness, and that things were said outside the appeal circle, which I did as well.
If council's comfortable, and Mayor, Mr. Barnett, if after you've received the information we've given you tonight, there are specific things we need to look at, then we would want to hear back from you, so we could see if that's
Right,
there.
but I would suggest that this rebuttal process wasn't in place yet. I would ask that you put that in writing to the council so that you do have the opportunity to be heard. And
My
then,
rebuttal,
yes,
not in the public forum, but just to the council.
Well, I'm not comfortable with that.
all right, I'm
and
fine listening
here's-
to it. I just don't
and-
want to reinvent the process on the fly.
And I agree,
Okay.
The only twist in it is we were the ones that deviated the process by giving the presentation in the beginning rather than just staying with the appeal. So a certain amount of information coming in, because there's a member of the public here who wants to give us that, I think it should be limited. I think that then we can talk about that, because I think it is important to have that type of
Okay.
discussion. But I want to be careful, because we've got someone here talking. He had
Oh, I
no
wanna hear it.
forewarning. Yeah, we had no
Yeah.
forewarning that our presentation in the beginning was going to be different than the appellate issue, which the appellate issue is, was the denial appropriate or not the information background on PFAS. So that's my only concern, to give that opportunity.
Okay.
And I only provided that background. just
And I'm
for
not
yeah.
criticizing.
No, I know, but just
Okay.
for context purposes.
Well, go ahead and please be as brief as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will. So the key word here is remediation. This is what was going on here. It wasn't just let's pick and cherry pick some chemicals and pull them out. Trying to remediate this area. It's a migrating plume. You don't know where it is. You have 18 wells. You could figure this out in no time. The city was willing to walk away from this. And you put Brian Warner on this board. I want to thank you for doing that. The guy is intelligent. He's offered independent advice, one of which is to get a different lawyer. So that's a plus, and you need to be complimented. But this is a migrating plume, plus it's going into the Clam River. You've seen what the Clam River looks like every spring. It's overflowing. It's going all over the place. We had a school with PFAS out there. There's a tape of the LDFA meeting. I'd ask that you each listen to it and see where they are with this. They're working on, they did do some good things, and they turned into a different direction from where it was. My time frames were 96, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm sorry if those were longer than what might usually be asked in a FOIA. Just the carbon, you've not tested the carbon filters. People like Mr. Warner say that's not going to cover it. You need to test it. It's not been monitored, tested. You don't know what's happened with PFAS. You don't know what's going out. And the test results were moderate. They weren't just lower. They were moderate.
Can I interject with a question?
Yeah.
because I don't know the answer to it, somebody else might be interested. The carbon filters, how long are they there for? How often are they changed? Is there a need to?
There was a need for them at one time when the chromium was really high. I think 10 years into their use, so I'd say probably 2004 to 2007, we changed out the carbon the first time because of the load of chromium we were getting at the time. Since that time, the loading of chromium has gone down to nil. We've been testing it pre and post that for chromium, which we do not see any breakthrough for, so we have not changed that carbon since then because the loading has gone down. Now, again, this was designed for chromium extraction. I do not know what it's doing with the PFAS. It is a treatment for PFAS, but we've never tested for it. It's not in our permit. You know, it just was not part of the groundwater cleanup system protocol to test for PFAS.
So can I just say that, that what you're calling a rebuttal is not a rebuttal of the FOIA appeal, which this is just a rebuttal of more information about the.
Of the
The
information.
things that Marcus.
So what I would ask is instead of doing this here now, I would love to have maybe somebody from Eagle get some information, Jeff, and have us make this a topic, maybe of a community spotlight or something, talking about the LDFA, talking about what's being found out there, what we're doing, and make this something that is, I think that might help with make it more clear, more transparent for everybody to see. Is that something that we could do? And
I
that
think it's a
might
great
be
idea.
Yeah.
that, and that would make me feel good. You know, I've been working on water issues since even before I was on council. And at the very early when the LDFA was just put in, somebody was in Pete Stalker's office about this. So there are people in the community, people from Eagle who've spoken to me about this too. So I would love to see something like
I
that.
think
Would
that's a
that
good idea.
satisfy your?
Absolutely.
And I interrupted you asking the question about the carbon filter and how often it should be changed. Did you have other things still that?
No, I would just say there was a comment, there's 50 PFAS chemicals, there's 2,000 or 3,000. So we have a very short number of 28 that were looked at in this, at least the first test in 21. And one of them was just under the limit and it didn't get retested, nothing was done, nothing came forward. We've got people that have been affected by PFAS in the community and they were looking for a source at that time and it was all quiet. I just don't understand why that wasn't transparent. I would ask that that change going forward, and I appreciate your support as the council.
Okay, thank you.
So we need to vote on the
Yep.
appeal, right?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to not have to refile a FOIA just for the attorney-client privilege stuff. If you want to just hold off on a vote and share that with everybody, come back and make a ruling, I'd be fine with that.
No.
Here's still my question, I'll see where you guys are at. With the testing results, I know you can't be a mind reader, but is there anything else specific in the denial? Because that's what we need to decide, is the denial appropriate or not? Is there anything else specific in the denial that you can say, I didn't receive this, not related to the privilege information, but I didn't receive this, and I need you guys to consider
I
it?
think he's asking for the privilege information. He's asking.
And I'm saying other than that
Yeah.
we would have to look at, yeah.
So no.
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm shooting in the dark too, just like the city is with what's going into the Clam River.
And I didn't understand whether that was the case or whether there was something
Okay.
else.
Thanks, yeah. I may trust the 2022 results. Thank you for sharing those, Mr. Ketchum.
You're welcome.
I'm glad to see the city has those.
Okay, I will make a motion to deny the FOIA appeal by Mr. Barnett.
Second?
Councilmember King.
Based on what I know, I vote yes, but that means ask more information.
Shippers.
Yes.
Allenboss.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, and this evening, we do have a public hearing related to blight
Thank you.
prevention.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. As introduced last month, the ordinance for consideration this evening would make provisions under our section of code regarding blight a civil infraction versus a misdemeanor as they are currently listed. And the specific sections make violations under section 16-208 through 16-214 municipal civil infraction, again, versus a current misdemeanor. One of the justifications for this request would be to essentially help streamline the process that we have and more so the judicial end of it. And Mike, I don't know if you'd like to add perhaps a clearer justification other than just efficiency. But from a legal perspective, when we had talked about it, how it would make it essentially easier.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
efficient
Yeah.
for the city to chase down blight violations as a civil infraction, because you can do a lot of that administratively. There are some times when you're going to have a formal hearing involved, but a lot of times these will resolve themselves through an informal hearing process, and an order will be issued for abatement. Under the misdemeanor statute, criminal statute, the authority of the court is limited to abate the nuisance or abate the blight. And so this gives the courts an extra tool to use, as well as the city itself, to administratively track those down. Again, there may be some instances that go to formal hearing, but there probably aren't many that will, and that's when attorneys will be involved. And the Wexford County attorney who does your code enforcement, he has confirmed that it would be his office even in those formal hearing process. So it's something that falls under your existing contract.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll go ahead and
I'll
open
just, we're doing the public hearing.
public
first.
hearing first,
Okay.
yeah. We'll go ahead and open the floor for any public comment as it relates to this public hearing topic. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and move to discussion or questions from the council.
I think this is a good way to go. I agree with Mr. Homier that it can be a more efficient way. I just want to make clear that I still am going to be working for answers as to why, when our other code was enforceable, and John Sorry reminded me that I worked with him for over a decade on enforcement under the old penalties, and it was very enforceable, and the court did everything. This is a change. It's a good change. I want to know why it wasn't used for the past year and a half. But I think this is a good move going forward.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the ordinance to make violations of blight prevention provisions municipal civil infractions.
Second.
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Allenboss.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. And Sandy, that takes us to several communications for this evening.
Yes. Recommended to approve the display of a banner from July 29th to August 5th, 2024 for the Cadillac Area Public Schools.
I'll make a motion to approve the display of a banner from July 29th to August 5th for the Cadillac Area Public Schools.
Second.
Support.
Lots of support.
Councilmember Allenboss.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Being recommended to approve the display of a banner, street and parking lot closures, parade routes, directional signs, and fireworks display for the Cadillac Freedom Festival as presented. And we did try to do a summary sheet at the back of the 37 pages of information.
Thank you. You did.
Does anybody?
No.
I would make a motion to approve the display of a banner, street and parking lot closures, parade routes, directional signs, and fireworks display for the Cadillac Freedom Festival as presented.
Support.
Councilmember Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Allenboss.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Being recommended to approve the partial closure of the Cadillac Commons parking lot on July 20th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the Landing Dance Academy. And my understanding, it's only a few parking spaces that they're being closed.
Right. This is actually a wonderful event that they do out in the parking area.
So I've got a question though. With a car wash, there's a lot of detergent that goes into the storm drain.
Mhm.
And that storm drain in the commons is right by the lake. Do the storm drains from the commons have any kind of filter or anything, or is this just gonna all go into the lake?
Don't they go to your cleaning plant? Doesn't- No?
They're storm drains.
Only the splash pad goes to.
Okay.
So the sediment would settle out in the storm drain, but a catch basin that has what I'll
That's
call
what I
a
was-
stilling area that the water would go in and the heavy stuff would fall out. But any of the soaps or anything they'd use in would go out to the lake. So I'd say you'd get, phosphorus-free soap that's good for the environment. Just make sure that since you're that close to the lake, it is going to be direct, a direct tie. If you were on top of the hill or something there might be more time to.
So can you contact the Landing Dance Academy and make that request of them?
I can certainly,
Can we
if you
make
direct
it
me
a-
to, I certainly can.
Can we make it a condition? I would like to make it a condition
Yeah, I
of
think
approval.
that's a great idea.
Two councilpersons, Shippers'
Yes.
comments. Because we had to do this today and you're doing research on the PFAS, degreaser soap is one of the
Yes.
biggest contributors to,
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah,
So please,
I will call them and
great, thank you.
tell them to use, what's her name, Mrs. Meyer or something.
We're-
Go get seventh generation and use that.
Are you making part of your motion that we
My
would do?
motion is to approve with the caveat of
Environmentally friendly.
environmentally friendly,
Non-degreaser.
non-degreasing detergents.
I'll support that.
Supported, Steve.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Allenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
It's being recommended to approve the placement of the purple lights, purple ribbons, and tire signs from August 8th to September 8th, 2024 for Relay for Life as presented. Jamie did ask that it was originally August 15th. She asked that it be changed to the 8th. I want to verify with Mallory, though, that there's not a reason that it wasn't set for the 15th instead of the 8th. But if there is nothing else going on, then we
Okay.
would have the approval for the 8th, beginning on the 8th.
So how do we do that motion then?
I
Just,
can do that.
you could approve it from the 8th, and then with the understanding that I'll contact Mallory tomorrow to find out.
I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the placement of the purple lights, purple ribbons, and tire signs tentatively from August 8th, if approved by Mallory, but August 15th is backup, 2024 to September 8th, 2024, for the Relay of Life as presented.
I'll support that.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Allenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. All right, that takes us to a couple of adoption of resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. As we near the end of our current fiscal year, it's not uncommon that we're here with a budget appropriations request for amending the act for the current fiscal year that we're in. And Owen, give the floor to you to walk us through it.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. Like Marcus said, this is very much a part of our rhythm to come towards the end of the year to have a kind of a thorough look at where we are budget-wise and to have this hopefully final budget amendment. So want to spend some time, I'll be as brief as possible here, and definitely time for questions when I'm done. It starts on page 1 with the general fund. And just to show some extra revenues that have come in, I'll highlight a couple of those. The marijuana tax, that's the shared revenue from the state based on the volume that was sold. We had budgeted $80,000. We received $118,000, so that's $59,000 per license. That's based on how many licenses you have. The state of Michigan for $70,500. That was funds that the state is sponsoring cadets to go through the police academy, and so it's that was for 3 of them. So just under $24,000 per officer to send them through the academy. So that covers their supplies, the cost of the academy, and some travel costs as well. And so we've sent 3 of those thoroughly or fully through the academy. You'll see some matching costs in the police department because that happened later in the year. So that wasn't part of the original budget. The local community stabilization authority, that's the personal property tax reimbursement. So we had budgeted for $650,000 and we received $735,000 from the state. We just received the second portion of that payment about a week ago. Caps on the school resource officer. We had originally had one SRO that's been primarily in the high school. Caps agreed to a cost share of $50,000 a year for that position, and they received actually a grant for a second school resource officer. So now, as part of all of the school buildings in the Cadillac school system, we have 2 officers available, and the school is paying. The grant is it's either 50% or 75%. Now it's escaping me, but whatever I think it's 75%. And then the school and the city are splitting the remaining portion of that. That allows us to use that officer as needed, some during the summer or when the school is not in session. So it's a good partnership for a second SRO with the school system. And then interest income, that's a combination of higher interest rates, both in the investment portfolio and the very conservative fixed income investments we're able to make. And if you recall, last fall we did the RFP for banking services and switched over. So we're earning about 4% on all of our checking account funds as well. So that's been a great move for us, helping to make some extra interest income. Contributions from private sources, we received the funds primarily through the community foundation for the pickleball courts. Spent most of it last year, but we kind of had let you know that the money was coming in. It came in after the beginning of the fiscal year. And you'll see some final costs we paid for this year later on here. That does it for the revenue. Moving into the expenditures, elections, just a small amount of additional costs. There's a lot more work, and that Sandy can attest to, that goes into running an election this year, and that just continues to snowball in the new rules and guidelines. So we have more people that are helping. Sandy has someone that comes in for a month or 2 leading up to an election, and then just right after that is very well versed in that too. So some additional costs from $28,000 up to $34,000. The good news on that is just over $11,000 should come back from the state as a reimbursement for a lot of those costs. So we have applied for that and haven't heard any challenge to the amount, so we're expecting those funds to come soon. Page 2, Police Department. So this is where you'll see the first 2 lines, primarily the costs for the cadets. So travel and education and operating supplies. We cover all their supplies and everything that they need to get through. We have to pay those, and then we get reimbursed from the state. Small amount of additional vehicle repairs and maintenance. And then capital outlay went up by quite a bit. We did talk about this when we bought the 3 patrol vehicles that we had found available. And so that is what that is for, as well as some of the upfitting costs for those cars. Fire department, some extra overtime, primarily related to some MMR things that we are whittling away at that regularly. And so that's coming in the right direction, especially compared to a year ago.
And I have a question on
Sure.
that. That MMR thing's been going on for quite a while. It doubled. The expense doubled this year as from what we had in the budget.
Yep.
What did it look like in the prior year?
I believe it was about 270
Okay.
was the amount for that. And then that just covers, because of their shortage, they're relying on us a lot more. And we have to backfill our station so that we're fully ready should another call come in for a fire during that
Right.
time.
No, I
So
understand
that, yeah,
that,
that
yeah.
generates a lot of that. So yeah, yep. Moving in the right direction, still high, and we are continuing those discussions. And incidentally, they did increase their contractual payments some, but only by about 25,000. So, planning and zoning, some additional wage costs there, primarily due to the transition from the former zoning administrator last summer. And so as part of that, there's always some transition costs. Additionally, due to the long-term absence of a position, we have brought back our retired zoning administrator, Jerry Adams, on a part-time basis to help bridge that gap. So that caused some additional costs in that department. Economic development is where we pay for special projects. So just the bulk of that $20,000 is final cost for the pickleball courts. We made the final payment in the current fiscal year as they wrapped up the work. The next several categories are all related to DPW hours and equipment rental. They have a bank of people and hours, and we budget for what we think the activities are going to be. So this just kind of cleans up. There were some additional activities within the main, just public works. Some of that is sidewalk costs and things like that. Parks and recreation, the DPW, when we don't have seasonals, the DPW backfills the requirements to do the work in the parks, as well as do some of the forestry and things like that in the Parks Department. Community promotions, same thing. That's where we cover the hanging of banners, hanging of lights, things like that. And so there were some additional hours. Most of these will be offset by some reductions in other places. A lot this year will be in the major and local street fund because of the lighter winter that we had. So those costs will be well under appropriations. Finally, and I want to highlight both of these, transfer out other financing uses for the general fund. The first one is to the market. We are proposing that comes out of remaining ARPA funds. We received just over $1 million, $1.1 million in ARPA funds, and we have utilized 218,000 of those, so we have 885,000 left. And as we approved the grant the grant application about a year ago, it just specified $100,000 from the general fund. We're recommending to utilize a portion of those ARPA funds, and that preserves the capital reserves in the general fund. The second one there is for lake treatment. We just received over the last couple of weeks the survey for the lake treatment, and based on what the consultant is recommending, they said we could basically spend about $30,000, or they recommend $39,000 to do a more thorough treatment. That's the recommended cost. We did a supplemental treatment last August at about $8,000. If we hadn't done that, we'd have enough money to pay for the lesser of the treatment. But we would desire to follow their recommendation. We think it's the best move is to follow their recommendation on the total treatment of $39,000. So that increase in the transfer of $30,000 would cover that and give some flexibility if they have to spray a little more while they're out there. And if that's not used, it's preserved for lake treatment.
Oh, and does that go along with, we were reading about the fact that they had, if I remember right, the report indicated because of our mild winter, they're more concerned
Growing
about
conditions, yeah.
catching it early
Yep.
now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's why I think, it's a great point that I think it's important to follow their recommendation for that. That covers that full treatment that they're recommending. And they would probably do that either yet this week or next week. So it'll be coming right up. So that takes care of the general fund. If you look in the summary, we had originally planned to use $256,000 in reserves, and that was primarily for capital projects. With this amendment, we would use $262,000, but 100 of that, if you followed our recommendation, would be ARPA funds. So only using $162,000 of regular general fund reserves instead of $256,000. So that number's a little bit bigger, but we're actually better off than what we started the fiscal year. That makes sense. Page 4 is the water and sewer fund. Wanted to point out a couple things on revenue. Again, some additional earnings there from the interest rate environment. The state of Michigan there, we received a grant to demolish the old water facility, and that included restoration and some seeding there. That helps get that site ready for development. That grant was just over $35,000. The first section under expenditures, under contractual services, that's where we paid for that demolition. So that went up by a bit, but that's because it was for costs that were offset by a grant. Sludge treatment, injection costs, that's just based on, we did award a bid not too long ago to haul those biosolids, and the volume, the actual volume was a little bit higher. The price actually also went up some with the new bid. So we need a few extra costs, about $15,000 to cover that. Wells and well fields, that's where we do the preventive maintenance. We pay for that from here, and we plan on $25,000 to $30,000 a year. And last year, with the bid and the timing of the contractor, they didn't get here until this fiscal year. So basically, we didn't use it last year. We're using not only this year's appropriation for this year, but also last year's. So it's more of just a transfer of appropriation than it is new funds. Same thing really for the operating supplies. These are for meter operations and maintenance. We got to replace primarily the radio part of the meter anytime they go down, or we won't be able to bill. So you never know from one year to the next how many of those will fail, need replaced, break. Part of these were meters, again, that were ordered in March of last year, didn't come till about November. And so we didn't use about $9,000 of last year's appropriation. That's part of what we'll spend again for this year, as well as a little bit higher than normal failure and replacement of meters for this year. Page 5, we're almost there. Major street fund. Construction, we have to actually decrease this appropriation. Typically, we would probably just not spend, but we don't have enough fund balance, and I don't want to get too nerdy here, I guess, in accounting terms, but if we don't decrease this appropriation, we would have appropriated more than we would have had on hand, and that's illegal, basically. You can't do that. According to the budgeting rules. So that really is all that this is accomplishing. And that was primarily because of some of the repaving and Carmel Street that we did last year. They were actually able to get it done quicker. So we kind of appropriated those funds in last fiscal year, and in May and June they got all those done. So that was what those costs were for. In the IT fund, small amount of contractual services. That contract has gone up some. And then software and consulting, so many more of our services now, instead of buying a piece of software at a high cost and then kind of depreciating it over time, or having a license that lasts for 5 or 10 years, you have to pay by year. So that software and consulting line really is where we pay for the subscription fees for various pieces of software. We had to do that with the GIS, which was new this year, and some others for about $35,000. There are funds on hand to cover that. Bottom of page 5, lake treatment fund. So this just shows the additional transfer from the general fund and the additional treatment costs as contractual services. Page 6, in the Cadillac Development Fund, we received a match on Main grant from the state of Michigan, and that's a pass-through grant for a downtown business. The DDA does a great job of advertising and getting those out, and so a number of businesses now have been able to do some nice work to their storefronts and different things through that grant. Budgeting the revenue and the payment out of those, and then some small other economic development memberships and participation. In the DDA, they got a little bit extra from contributions and interest, and then some, just a small amount of salary addition, and then the contractual services for $6,000. The watering of the flower baskets has gone up a bit as well, and so that just covers those costs, and that's covered by the DDA operating millage. Last page, two more items. Stores and garage, just a small amount of equipment maintenance. tough to predict year to year, but we feel like we estimate it fairly close. This year we need about $10,000 more. Self-insurance fund, claims funding, we are self-insured to a point, and so again, the premium costs are pretty predictable. The claims funding is not. It's based on actual experience. Prescription costs are the biggest contributing factor to that, and anywhere you talk about the health industry, you're going to hear about prescription drugs. So need some extra dollars for that, and there are funds available in that fund as well to cover that. Sorry that's long. This is kind of the long one of the year that we do each year. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Is it right that the last day to assign where the ARPA funds are going is December 31st of this year?
Not quite. Well, I mean, yes, except we took revenue loss. That's a great question. So we counted everything. You had that standard exemption of $10 million that you could just count as revenue loss. So we have actually, as of April 30th, we have reported 100% of our costs have been spent, essentially, because in these categories, we basically, you could even use prior budgeted funds, and the ARPA funds could supplant those budgeted funds. So for federal reporting purposes, with the report that was just due on April 30th, we have now reported 100% of those costs as having been expended. However, we are putting any residual funds in a reserve account in the general fund, and then as these projects come, we're utilizing those. So we reserved that fund balance, and then we can use that with a little more flexibility as we move forward.
Fantastic.
So we have reported 100% of those spent as of April 30 to the government, very much, above board and allowed by that standard exemption, that revenue replacement exemption. But we have 885 left that we haven't allocated as a group here to various projects.
Fantastic.
Good question.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to approve, I will make a motion to adopt the resolution amending General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2024 as presented.
I'll second.
Councilmember Alabas?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. This next request is a brand-new program called the Michigan Shared Streets and Spaces Grant. It is a zero-match grant opportunity. The state did a webinar, I want to say May 21st or May 22nd, somewhere around there, announcing this grant opportunity that is due at the end of the week. It is, relatively speaking, a small grant in terms of the maximum is a couple $100,000, which is what we're asking for. And the types of projects that this grant was designed to try to provide funding for are those types of projects that otherwise could have been done as a part of other projects, but didn't get done due to lack of funding or other issues. And so the recommendation this evening would be to get council support so we could throw our name in the hat to try to get this grant. And the projects that we didn't move forward with, that we had all talked about in the past and we didn't move forward with because we were going to try to find another grant or some outside funding to fill, include a shade picnic shelter over at the White Pine Trailhead, looking at some green pavement surfacing for the shoulder bike lane around the lake. So we'll look at doing some other areas where that would be an appropriate treatment of the pavement. Also looking at a shade picnic shelter at one of the micro parks that we're using funding from consumers to help us build out. Not enough funding to also do the shade picnic shelter as a part of it, whereas if we get this grant, then we can also include that. and wayfinding signage, which is something that we would love to be able to work with our DDA and have a dedicated funding source to be able to help with improvements and replacements of wayfinding, around the community. And so, basically, if we're awarded this grant, we'll learn our fate. We, at least according to the state, in August of 2024. And they are hoping that they'll then have their contracts with cities in place by the end of September of 2024, and the funds would have to be spent by September then of 2027. So this, any of these things, we're not talking about a this year project, but again, this is kind of how we do it, trying to find outside monies.
I'd make a motion to approve the submittal of the application for the Michigan Shared Streets and Spaces Grant.
Support.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Alabas?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Oh, we gotta do them both? I make a motion to approve the local government authorizing resolution for certification of the, you gave me the hard one, Michigan SSG application, comma, signing of the grant agreement, comma, and execution of all future documents required for grant completion.
Support.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Alabas?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, the motion carries. Okay, that takes us to our second public comment for this evening.
Okay, I'm Steve Pivarski. I live at 2208 North Boulevard. I have dock number 12 of the North Boulevard Association, Marina Association. We have a new thing going on dock number 14, just 2 docks away from mine. It's being used as commercial boat rental business. It appears that that business owner is not removing the violation, even though he's been made aware that it is against the city rules to have commercial marina there. And I'd say if there's no consequences, if we don't have any way to control or any consequences for these violations, and the same with the weekly rental violators, this is a sign that I can also follow suit and rent out my house on a short-term basis and rent boats from my dock and make thousands of dollars a week. Down the street, it'll domino, as this is very high-profit business. This isn't the type of residential area we want to convert Cadillac's beautiful North Shore to. We moved here in an area lived in by homeowners. We pay high waterfront taxes, and I don't think that we should have to put up with the view all cluttered up by 4 times as many boats and all these vacationers hanging out here in our neighborhood. We also have way too much traffic for what we have already, and it's very fast, very loud, and very dangerous with the speeds that sometimes are like 60 miles an hour in a 25 zone. We have no enforcement of that already. Who needs it to be made 4 times as much? We also have way too much competition already with the docks when the docks are there for parking on our side streets, and we don't really need to increase that any. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening again tonight. Last Thursday, when I was driving up from Grand Rapids to speak at the CEC about how Cadillac is making an entrepreneurial difference to the community and to share all the benefits of working with the city of Cadillac, I had 2 phone calls from 2 business people. And they said, "Hey, did you see the Thursday night TV of the special meeting?" I said, "No." And they said it was horrific. And I thought, I can't have been that bad. But I was a little surprised because I was driving up around 7 in the morning for them to call me that early. I watched the movie or the show, and there are seldom times I have ever felt more empathy for 2 people when watching the May 30th City Council meeting. The bullying, berating, and constant comments meant to humiliate Marcus and John Wallace by a City Council member shows a clear abuse of authority in front of others, and the councilmen knowingly did it on public television, which was unfair to the employees. The councilmen's rudeness and ridiculing them as employees, and this situation puts them in an unfair position since the councilman is in a place of authority over them. They have no means to professionally defend themselves, and they quietly took the abuse on public TV. I was horrified. The councilman's attempt at public discrediting both Marcus and John Wallace's, who's the community development director, skills and qualifications on the eve of the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference was appalling. Both Marcus and John were instrumental in bringing the conference to the city of Cadillac because of their leadership in changing the city from a poster child of blight to a vibrant city that was being admired that night by other communities. Marcus and John worked with other community leaders and staff in facilitating this wonderful event. The success of bringing the event to Cadillac wasn't celebrated, but tarnished by the city council's current culture. All key city employees are aware of the bullying and constant attempts to humiliate Marcus, who's their leader in city council meetings, on TV, and the newspaper by the councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mungar.
In closing, I'm going to ask the mayor to bring in a person, a third-party person, to teach proper workplace respect and anti-bullying. And I have handouts.
Rick Torres once again. It's okay to disagree. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. We have a beautiful city. We have a lot of great things in this city. And I've made it my home for over 40 years now. Had a great job in the Carl T. Johnson Hunting and Fishing Center and loved everyone that I saw there and served them as best as I could. And when it comes to serving the public, opinions like those of Steve King last week weren't attacks. They were transparency. Accountability is on the top of our agenda today. you were correct. There was no accountability. Was it horrific? Yes, it was horrific. But I will say the duty of our city council members is to do what's right on behalf for the citizens of this community. They are the voice of this community. And if you're going to listen to the community, then we have that expectation that perhaps not only are you going to hear us, but you're going to listen to us and act on what our concerns are in a favorable way. We've had things occur in this council over the last number of months, that didn't appear as though they were working on behalf of the community, what they wanted. So if you truly have a duty to your community, the transparency is important. If it means it's going to affect someone, well, so be it. We all have jobs to do. We have to be communicators. We have to advise. We have to work together. It's vital. Communications, top of the list. Top of the list. This PFAS things, I said it before, that's a serious thing. If Carl T. were still alive, he'd probably be having a fit about it. He really would. Him and I talked about water many times. So let's see what we can do as a team and help benefit our community and keep up with the transparency. It's vital, especially for the people in this community, to have a trust in those people that lead our city. Thank you.
Rick.
2 minutes?
3.
3. Oh, all right. Okay, I'm Dave Maynard, and I am an employee of the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. I work on cleanup projects, but I'm here as a citizen of the city to make commentary. What I do for a living is relevant because I'm seeing things unfolding here that are similar to a project that I have up in Traverse City. It's on the banks of the Boardman River. And I haven't studied everything closely because it's not my project here, but in general, I can say through reading the papers and whatnot that what's going on here is really being done in a professional manner, and it takes time to untangle these things. And also you need to be careful with any pre-existing agreements, court orders, or anything like that, because they have to be followed exactly. And if you alter them, if you add monitoring to it or anything like that, it has to be done properly. It's not, you just can't do it overnight. I have also heard a rumor, and I hope it's just a rumor, that there's some kind of cover-up going on. And I would say if someone wants to make that allegation, they should come up with proof of it. But I don't see any motivation for a cover-up. Everybody here, you're volunteers, maybe you get a little stipend, but the city employees are civil servants that want to do the best job possible. What else did I have to say? This project that I have up in Traverse City, it was an electroplating plant, and it shut down in the 70s, and then Lear took it over, and they're making electrical connectors, but they don't use any electroplating materials or PFAS. And PFAS was used in electroplating to keep the mist down, and that was to protect the people working in the place. I have exactly the same thing going on up there. Hexchrome is traveling with PFAS, and we have no idea why. It's no reason for it to be there, but it's there. And so it's going to take a careful examination of what's going on in the environment to come up with a solution. Probably, and I'm trying to keep within the 3 minutes, probably the filtration device at the industrial park, probably that was knocking it down quite a bit.
But one thing you could do, and has been done, fish tissue studies in the river would show you if it's bioaccumulating in the residents there, and you could get a better idea of what's going on. You have an industrial pre-treatment program that checks for PFAS. You've got a discharge monitoring that checks for it. So we're doing the very best we can to keep it under control. And this thing hit us. You know, it was like COVID. It just hit us, and we were building a response. MPART is one of them. We were building a response. You know, the battleship was out to sea, and we were still building it at the time. So sometimes it kind of goes a little goofy. I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
My name is Pollyanna Torres. I live at 113 Otsego. I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work that you do. This is a beautiful city. If you didn't love this city so much, you wouldn't work as hard as you do. And I didn't find Mr. King to be horrific. I found him to be passionate because he cares about the city. And I think that if we look at it that way and we don't come to it as a place of negativity, that we're all here to help each other, this city wouldn't be where we're at, as beautiful as it is, with all these things going on, if everybody wasn't working together. And if we argue a little, that's okay, because in the end, we come together and we get all the hard work done. And I just want to thank you all for all the hard work that you do, because it's not easy. One big family, lots of brothers and sisters. Well, we appreciate it.
I like to echo what Pollyanna said, because I think that everybody's trying to work together. I mean, I can see the city council doing that. And last Thursday, when Steve was bringing the stuff to a head, it's because everybody's frustration, and it has been an ongoing situation. It continues to go on. And so as we look at the enforcement issue, with all these different topics of enforcement, everybody gets frustrated, and they come out, they keep coming out, they keep saying, what do we have to do? And then we got that list of people that you provided last week, or Thursday, and all those people, they were there 4 years ago. So those people that are in charge of enforcement now are the same people that were in charge of it that caused the problem or failed to do their jobs. So that's the part that I'm concerned about. It's like, now, how are they going to fix the problem? Yeah, I used to manage people, and they'd go do something wrong, and then they go, well, you go fix it. And they can't fix it. They're the ones who broke it. So it's frustrating, and I think that's what's coming out. But I think that Pollyanna's right. I think everybody is looking for the good of the city, and then you see different issues. Like Steve was talking about the docks over there with the 4 boats on it. It's like the enforcement is still the issue. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and move to good of the order. And Marcus, could you share the updates on the dock situation?
Yes. So this is literally something that is still happening. In fact, I don't know the result of a special meeting that was taking place yet this afternoon. But my last conversation was, I want to say, just after 5 or just before, probably just before 5 actually, with the chair of the North Boulevard Marina Association regarding this issue that's occurring out there. And what the issue is that there is somebody that legitimately is a part of their process to obtain a dock slip, got a slip, put a dock in, and then put in multiple pontoon boats and a device that can hold a couple of different jet skis. And when the Boulevard Association asked him, what was going on with all of that, he said, well, I'm planning on renting these out and taking them over to the public boat launch area for whoever is renting them for people to use. Our code is explicit in that commercial activities cannot occur within that dock space, within that North Boulevard Marina space. The Boulevard Association this evening was going to be considering the rescinding of that person's permit. We, being our public works staff, have already been in touch with this person who is looking at trying to rent his vessels out this summer, similar to what City Council did, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, where we created a pilot program for somebody to rent kayaks and bicycles. Are going to hopefully be in a position to bring a recommendation forward at your next council meeting, but I don't have any specifics. I don't have any operational logistics or details about that tonight. Otherwise, I would have, if this happened this morning versus this afternoon, I would have had a recommendation that, we look at this evening, but I don't, and so that's why it'll be at your next meeting. The individual understands that there are no guarantees, and understands that even if he does receive a pilot year to have this option, that it may not be something that we're interested in pursuing next season. But that's basically where we're at. The code talks about how the city gets involved if there's an issue regarding dock placement, and I think boats arriving at the same time to the same dock where we would get involved in enforcement, but otherwise this is really a North Boulevard Marina Association issue to enforce. We'll then come on the back end and enforce it if we have to. If there's non-compliance, we can do, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but civil infraction, right, on this issue. But it's one where I think we'll have an amicable solution. It's one where the North Boulevard Marina Association is making that determination this evening. And then we'll hopefully have a good solution where he can try to operate this summer. And, so, but operations would not be anywhere near the marina area. It would be on this side of the lake. So similar to where we were going to allow the kayak rental and the bike rental. So
I have a movie of them, of people taking the boat back just last night and returning the car to their car parked on our street.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So when you talk about it being down by where you just said, there isn't a dock currently there for them to use? Or there?
Not unless we were to allow for the public dock to be taken away for public use, which I would not recommend.
No.
Yeah, no. So it would be us looking at an area, if there is one, where he could put his dock in and use it for his rental business, similar to how we were going to allow another local entrepreneur to carve away a part of the park area to have a rental.
And would this be something that we would consider, considering he just set up shop in a place he knew he shouldn't have?
Well, it depends on who you talk with. None of the information conveyed by the Marina Association talks about whether or not you can have a commercial operation or not. Now, that doesn't excuse the fact that he may not have looked at our codes online, but I'm not certain how you would otherwise know that you can't do that. So,
Well, if,
I mean, that's the story he's provided.
yeah, and I would think that, when he set up the dock, that was his plan, and he should have discussed it with the association.
Oh, yeah, he's very forthright, saying that
Okay.
when asked, why do you have multiple boats and a jet ski rack at your dock? This looks like it's for more than just personal use.
Right.
The feedback I received from the dock association was that yes, it's the guy who said, oh yeah, sure, I'm planning on renting it. So, which is why he was told, no, you can't, and we're going to rescind your permit.
Where do you think his customers were gonna park? I mean, there's no, it's, yeah, okay.
Right.
And it is similar to our short-term rental. People that buy a house have a duty to see if it's allowed there before they initiate.
Right.
That is their obligation, not ours, yeah.
All right, anything else for good of the order?
Sure.
Okay.
As you all know, I've always invited public comment, and I am very passionate. I am glad Mr. Mungar gave his opinion tonight, but to let him know, I will always do my duty as a council member. One of my duties is to be responsible for managing our manager. And if I see that he is not doing his job, it is my duty as a council person to address that. First, I'm not asking for a response, sir. I have, as other council members have told you or may tell you, I have always been a person to work for consensus throughout my time on this council. And the issue of enforcement is one that is raw and it has not been addressed, and it became time to become very vocal about it, and I will not stop being vocal about it or be in any way dissuaded from it. I'm still a solution finder, but part of finding a solution is looking at the past, finding out how it was broken, figuring out who is responsible in breaking it, having accountability, and fixing it. I would not see last week as horrific at all. It's part of our process. We don't hide things, we talk about them. I'm happy to say there were several members that were at the seminar you're talking about who were here that expressed to me afterwards very positive comments about what happened at that meeting. Contrary cheers. Everyone has their opinion. That's okay. You can have a discussion. But just so it's clear, I will not be deterred from my duty. If there is a situation in the city in which an employee, and this is purely hypothetical, an employee has done something wrong, a malfeasance, or they've, let's say, misused public funds, and we know about that, and the manager doesn't do anything about it, then it's not only my duty to manage the manager, but my duty to point out to the manager what he has not done so that he can choose whether to correct that or not. So it is not a matter of a council person trying to manage staff. It's a council member who's bringing attention to the rest of council where I think there's a failure of management in the city, and I will not be deterred from that duty. In relation to my general comments, because I had several I wanted to go through, and most of them have to do with the calls and comments I've gotten from Thursday, all of which I will say have been very positive. But I have had several calls, and these are the general things they wanted to make sure the council knew. There was at least 3 calls based on concern that the people that came on the meeting last Thursday night didn't get a chance to address council in a second public comment. I had missed that we didn't have a second public comment or good of the order at the end.
We don't.
If we don't have a policy, I would ask that we put on our next agenda for the council to consider and vote that all agendas automatically have the first public comment, the second public comment, and the good of the order. That way, if it's missed somehow inadvertently, we make sure that that's there. Because I think what I heard, there were a lot of people that wanted to follow up and felt that they didn't have that opportunity. I didn't know, I talked to the mayor and Owen. I didn't know if you've been able to find my May 21st reporting on the website violation button yet.
Nothing came up that came from you, no.
Okay, so I'll redo that because that concerned me because my wife and I put that on May 21st and we've never heard back.
Yep, that did not come through.
Okay.
Yep.
The new reporting button on the
See-click fix?
yeah, to ordinance violations.
Yes.
Okay. The next thing was that there was a concern, and it goes to what Mr. Van Altz said, which is that citizens don't feel like they've necessarily been heard in relation to the enforcement issue. I hear Mr. Pavarski again here tonight. We are moving forward. We're going to address that. I think we're all in agreement on that. but I don't want the citizens who have taken the time to come to the meetings, who have spoken their opinions, to feel that, well, ours didn't matter. There was a call that we have to come to meetings. Mayor, you had indicated that, and I want to make sure citizens understand there's no public shaming, and I don't want them to think there's some people, and that's 5 of the calls I got, where we aren't happy with what's happened. We don't feel that the management of the city is appropriate in relation to enforcement, but we don't necessarily want to come out in public because they're afraid of retribution. I have told them that, again, if you contact council members, I'm happy just like right now, and I will use good of the order to make sure council knows those feelings are expressed. We do not want the public in any way to feel minimalized in relation to their opinions or their frustrations. In relation to the other comment that there are several calls on, there still is a feeling that nothing was presented at the special meeting that addressed the concerns of information I had requested for, concerns other had regarding the budgetary issues of adding another full-time salary. There was a feeling of frustration. Mr. Van Alt said it up at the podium, but I had several calls on it, that all that we were told is names of people. We were not explained to why those people had not done enforcement. John Sari called me, said it was okay to use his name. He has a lot of input for us because he said there was an easy process that was followed for a number of years. Why did it take a new presentation that supposedly was worked on 3 days before our special meeting when there was a process in place that was used for years for enforcement that worked? And I said I would express that, and that's still a question I have, and I'm still going to ask for answers on that. Finally, as I said, we must strive to be more than mediocre. That is our job. Our job is to make sure that the citizens' money is used responsibly, that we are enforcing our ordinances, that those that are tasked to enforce our ordinances are complying with their duties, and that they're being managed. And I will not shirk from that duty. Thank you.
I do not have anything.
I do.
I thought so.
A few things. First of all, I'm looking at the charter here, and I believe saying our job is to manage the manager is inaccurate. As a board, our job is, and I don't believe that that's just what was happening anyway. I believe that there was an inordinate amount of abuse and bullying that did take place, and it was visible to many people, and I would like to thank all of those people who contacted me, who stopped me at a festival this weekend, who spoke to me on the street or in a coffee shop this past week, to ask what's going on and to speak their support for the city. The business people who said that between John and Marcus, that they have been welcomed, that they have been assisted, that things have moved smoothly for them. Multiple people have contacted me. Now I understand that there are people that when this kind of thing happens, that there are sides that are taken, and somebody will say, oh, I support you, and I support you. Or this or that side or this side. So we only hear from those people who tend to agree with us. Those are the people who speak up. But I have to say, of all the times I've been on council, and there have been some extremely contentious times, extremely difficult and contentious meetings, this time, for the first time, I had the most people contact me. Not just people that are my friends in the community, but community leaders, investors, people from whom we have received grants, people who have worked as with building businesses in the community, who have taken the time to reach out to say, thank you for standing up and supporting the people who have done such a good job here. Now, to go back and say, you people broke this, so you have to go, heads have to roll, and then we have to fix it, is really a kind of ineffective method to move forward. The way to move forward is what we have been doing. It is a lie to say that nothing has been done. The people have not done their job. And it is a lie if you know that things have been done. It is an inaccurate assessment if you don't realize what has been done. But we have been talking about this for 2 years now. We have been in open meetings. We have been in meetings over at the water place. We have been in multiple meetings where we have discussed all these things and worked toward finding solutions. In that same time, we have had 2 members of the team whose job it was to do this. That have been incapacitated, and so the rest of the team is trying to pull together. In the time that I have been here, we have cut staff because of funding. As our city experienced reduced funding because we weren't getting what we were supposed to be getting from the state, that reduced funding was manifested not in limiting services to the public, but in reducing staff. So every single person here does multiple jobs. Every single person here does multiple jobs. And we talked about we need somebody because this is a big issue. Code enforcement is a big issue. Blight is a big issue. It's important to a lot of people. It affects our standard of living, the way we feel about our community. I get that. And so what we did is in a budget session where we were talking about this, which Councilmember King was not in attendance at, when we talked about all this stuff, is where we came up with the idea of giving money to get somebody dedicated to that instead of dedicated to 5 other jobs. And we agreed to that. Now, we were so excited about that, but I have to tell you, the only way and when that happens is in the next budget, which starts July 1st. So that was not something that was going to change immediately. We first had to allocate the money. We had to pass a budget, which was delayed to make a point. And then now we have to wait until July 1st for that funding to become available to get that person to do that job. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a big difference. Because something that the public has said is important, the staff worked on, this changing the enforcement to being a civil infraction instead of a misdemeanor to make it more addressable is a perfect solution. This is not ignoring the problem. This is fixing what wasn't working. I've had one of my constituents who had been talking about a neighbor's blight, junk in the yard and all this stuff, and the whole process was in place. They were notified. They were visited and notified. Things weren't happening. It went to the district court. There was a filing. The prosecutor did not prosecute. That was the end of the road. What else do we do? Now, we have changed that, so we have something we can do. There will be a fine. It will be assessed against your property. We don't have to just say, well, if the prosecutor won't do anything, there's nothing we can do. Now we have changed it, so there's something we can do. This is exactly what being professional staff and making things work for the community looks like. What does not look like working for the community is humiliating people, is demanding people be fired or resign. This is not helpful to the community. And I don't care how passionate people are. I understand passion. I feel it myself. However, there is a way to put that passion into making things happen, and there is a way to put that passion into blowing things up. I am somebody who uses my passion for the betterance of the community, just as Councilmember King says that he's doing. And I know that this is what he wants. I know he has the best intentions for the community. My point is that there is a way to do that without making everybody who works there took us off here feel like they have to walk on eggshells because at any minute, maybe they do something that makes one of us upset, and then they become a target. This is not how to be a public servant. The way to be a public servant is to serve and to do everything you can to make things better. And what we have been doing step by step, it is painfully slow. I have been on the other side of that podium early on with the whole water issues when the plume was spreading. I was on the other side of that, wagging my finger and saying, do something now, do something now. And in my many years in this seat, now being on the other side, where I can actually make things happen, it's like slogging through muck sometimes because it's slow. But it's slow because it's mindful. It should be slow. If we could change things like that, think of all the crazy changes that would happen, and we'd be going back and forth all the time. It's set up to work for everyone. And the people who work here do that. We don't have the highest paid city manager even in the area. We don't have the highest paid community development director even in the area. Our staff works. They're not the highest paid staff. And yet they work here and they do this for us, and I think it is appalling. It is appalling to make them feel at risk in this situation. And I hope that we can maybe look at, I know when council changed several years back, we did a day of retreat where we actually had input. We talked about how to work together. That's where we developed the agreements. I think you and I are the only ones who were on at that time. And I think it's time to do that again. I think that Mr. Munger's suggestion of having education, I would also like a very clear description of what our job is, maybe from legal as a council, and to use the right terminology when to put down, to make it clear to us and to the public what our job actually is. And then I would ask that we would all please do that. So that's that part. And then, because I am also the advisor for the youth council, for the Mayor's Youth Council, which is young people who look to us for how they're going to do their public service as they grow. High school kids that want to contribute and who look to us. And I hope they weren't watching last week. But what they are doing is next Friday, not this Friday, but Friday, June 14th, will be our first free movie in the park of the season. We're going to be showing Cars. Please bring the family. We will have concessions. We'll have popcorn and candy and water and soda. And we will start, I looked at it doesn't get dark till like almost 10 o'clock. So we're going to start at dusk. We can sort of see, and we're so excited about the new speakers, so we're going to be able to hear it well. Starting around 9 p.m. on June 14th. Bring the family, bring a blanket, put the kids in their jammies, and come and enjoy this community the way it's supposed to be enjoyed. June 14th. Thank you.
You good? You gonna be able to sleep tonight?
Hell yeah.
You look a little wound up here. Well, isn't it surprising in life when you have two situations, you have two such varied opinions? Happens all the time. This guy over here is saying accountability. This guy over there is saying bullying. I got to admit, Mr. Mungar, your email caught me off guard. I must be getting old. Bullying, I didn't get it. Maybe we need to talk more. I'd be glad to talk with you anytime. This is like a big family, a bit of a dysfunctional one up here, and these things are going to happen. And I don't know where to go from here, but I saw more accountability, and I don't know what we're supposed to do. if we're supposed to hug each other up here all the time, or can't we say anything bad? I mean, all of a sudden, ooh, can I say this? I don't know if I can say that. Give me a hug. We need to talk. You need to explain yourself better to me.
Great, you guys need training.
Well, I'm leaning I'm leaning more towards accountability, excuse me. And I'll end it on that.
And come to the movie.
Yes, kids of all ages.
We have one more item of business, Mayor.
Oh, right.
We have to have a motion to adjourn to closed session. Would someone like to make that motion?
I make a motion to go to closed session. Oh, do I?
There's actually a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss a written confidential legal opinion with the city attorney. Invite Adam Wajepka, Director of Public Safety. Roll call.
Support.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Alba,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
I ended up testing that website the day after.
Support.
Allenboss,
No, we got to return to session
Ingalls.
first.
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. And with that, we'll adjourn.
All right.